Let's see what we got. Rappers who fake their entire lifestyle.
When you're a
These niggas
musician,
faking
your
our
image
lives,
is
cuz.
very important to your artistry. And for many people in rap music, historically it's been important to have a harder or a cooler image. But not everyone who has made music in this genre is like that. Some people are honest about it, but other people were likely too insecure to be themselves and decided to lie about their image. So today we're going to be looking into rappers who lied about their image and suggesting that they should be promoting something negative. You lie. Check it out. Rick Ross has created a career that many young aspiring rappers could only dream of. He has 11 studio albums and has featured on countless
like
songs,
Rick Ross get
many
away
of
with
which
this
make
shit.
up his most popular works. I mean, you guys know how big of a rapper Rick Ross is. Recently, many people have seen him going viral for having a farm or through his very recent involvement with Drake. Bottom line is, Ross has been in the game for a while. He's never had a super hard image per se, but he has alluded to having a tougher life. Like on the song I'm So Hood when he says, "Snitching ain't gonna cut no time, I'll murder one of you, rob you for your last, then off come the mask." And he has plenty of other songs where he alludes to selling drugs and things along those lines. But somehow, even with all of his accolades, Rick Ross has managed to become known as one of the biggest liars in the game. And to understand how, we gotta look more into his come up. In 1967, Rick Ross was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi. He didn't live there long though, as he eventually moved to Carroll City in Miami. Unlike where Ross was born, Carroll City had a much larger population of around 60,000 people and deals with a lot of problems that come with living in a bigger city. For Ross, these problems showed themselves in the visible crime and poverty in his area that would begin to spark interest in the lifestyle he would portray in his music. The Miami lifestyle seemed to influence Rick Ross's persona, along with the show Miami Vice, which he claims to be a big fan of. While growing up, Ross himself mostly kept on the straight and narrow path, but regardless, at some level he was influenced by his environment. Instead of making money in the common ways that many around him did, and in a way he would go on to rap about, Rick Ross worked at a car wash making about $30 a day. While working at the car wash, he saw a lot of expensive cars owned by a bunch of different types of people like millionaires, dealers, businessmen, and people like that, and he said he was very inspired by them. So even though he was inspired early to make some money, his steps toward becoming those he looked up to would not begin yet. Instead, he went to college. This is where things start to get a little shaky for Rick Ross's image, and a reason why many call him a liar. You may be thinking, with the things Ross raps about, it's a little odd to think he was a man interested in further education. Well, the world seemed to agree, as they discovered he not only got a football scholarship to attend Albany State, but also was studying to become none other than a criminal justice major. Quite the opposite of what he rapped about living. To be fair though, he did drop out after his first year. But what followed his dropping out would only add on to the credibility issues that he would later come to face. Because after he left Albany State at 19, he began working as a correctional officer at a South Florida prison. Well, his time there only lasted 18 months, which to me still feels pretty long in contrast with the things he raps about. The job was no joke and not a position that you could just start a day after signing. To secure that position, Mr. Rose would have to go through a Department of Corrections training academy that required 540 hours of instruction. That's over 20 days in training, so he was clearly committed. The CO portion of Rick Ross's life was discovered in 2008 during his early popularity. A photograph was released by a TMZ adjacent website called The Smoking Gun that depicts a younger Rick Ross in uniform while working at the prison. After getting exposed, for years he would just deny the validity of the picture, making outrageous claims, like saying that it was photoshopped. In countless interviews, he would be drilled on the topic, and every single time he would either deny it or derail the entire conversation.
Trick Daddy recently accused you of working as a prison guard at one point, Rick. Is there any truth to that?
No, that's not true. But that's disappointing to hear that he said that. He said that?
That's what the question said.
Eventually, though, he admitted it, saying it was just a way to make money and that he was just using the job as a way to understand the other side of the drug dealing world.
You know what I mean? So we all did a lot of different things to put us all in position. In position, right. And it's not the obvious. So if Rick Ross did work at one of these places, it wasn't for the obvious reason. Right. You know, it's a lot of gold mines around people's faces that people really don't know how to take advantage of. So yeah, me and we did what we do. You know what I mean?
This clip was taken from like 2 whole minutes of him beating around the bush, claiming that he basically got the job just to get in with the people who were locked up. Eventually though, he got to the point where he was comfortable enough to just straight up admit it.
So were you a correctional officer at one point?
I was, yeah.
So going all the way back, when was that? How long ago?
Maybe when I was 20.
20 years old.
Yeah.
Since his college major was criminal justice, it didn't seem like his real goal was to become a double agent, but Who knows? After that, Ross considered working as a firefighter, but decided to work in construction so he could spend more time following his dream of making music. DeBoss's start in music was under the name Teflon Don. After getting some traction in the music industry and making some connections, including a significant friendship with our boy DJ Khaled, in the mid-2000s he changed his name to Rick Ross. And this is another point in his career that would cause many to call him a liar, all because of his name. If you don't know a lot about the situation, you may wonder what's so bad about his name, and that's the thing. It wasn't his name. In fact, it was the name of a real person. That real person is the notorious former drug lord Freeway Rick Ross, or Freeway Ricky, or whatever else you want to call him. Freeway is known for his 1980s drug empire that dominated LA for years, and eventually led to his sentence of life in prison, ended with a successful appeal that freed him in 2009. And he wasn't some random dealer either, because Freeway once boasted that his empire was so large they were making $1 million a day. This was in the 80s, so if you adjust for inflation, that is almost $5 million of today's money coming in every day. He's so big, in fact, that many say he's a major influence for the popular FX show Snowfall, specifically the protagonist Franklin Saint. And despite how extremely popular Freeway Rick Ross was, Teflon Don still decided to pretty much copy his name.
When the streets had that kind of love for you, the rappers find out. You know, they're some of the first people to find out about that, and he took it and he capitalized on it.
To be fair, Ross did grow up around a lot of similar things that Freeway was partaking in, but the key word is grew up around. He was never doing it like Freeway, as he has claimed in many songs. When this realization was made by the public, many people were upset again that Ross had seemingly lied about his past. And not only was the public upset, but Freeway himself, after being released from prison, decided to sue Rick Ross and WMG for stealing his name as well as his image.
I hit him when we was in jail. We talked, and he was supposed to come and see me, and he never did. I wasn't really tripping about that. I got out, you know, start doing my own thing. This lawyer came to me and said, man, Universal owe you $50 million. I said, go get it.
Yeah.
Just like that. That's all it was.
But while Freeway and the public's frustration was reasonable, the court inevitably threw the case out in favor of Rick Ross based on a First Amendment ruling. Ironically enough, this lawsuit was one of Rick Ross's first encounters with the law. He did have a few minor charges here and there, but nothing like Freeway Ricky. All of it came after his breakthrough success, and none of it corroborates anything close to the detailed Miami cocaine cowboy lifestyle he raps about. As his lie-filled past seeped out into the public, it got around to 50 Cent, who after getting into some type of beef with him, claimed that the drive-by shooting Ross was involved in 2013 was staged. While there's no solid evidence for that being the case, it appeared to be believable enough at the time for 50 to use it as a shot at Rick Ross because of his tattered credibility. Ironically, the beef between 50 and Ross allegedly started when 50 gave Ross a disgusting look at the BET Awards. It then escalated to some back and forth diss tracks in which 50 coined the popular nickname for Ross, Officer Ricky, alluding to his CO past. And it seemed like a lot of the issues that 50 had with Ricky Rose was his fake image. 50 is known for having countless different beefs and pursuing them to a level like no other, and Ross's lies were plenty of ammunition for 50 to take advantage of. In this case, 50 took more of a creative approach in his public dismantling of DeBoss through a short cartoon series titled Officer Ricky.
Officer Ricky! Damn, Rick. Why you got me up in this man? Is it because I said you and your mama look like the Clumps? Well, y'all is some ugly mother.
So clearly Ross had a lot of lies throughout his career. But it's important to note that even if Ross did lie, he obviously did a few things right, as he is now one of the most successful rappers as well as entrepreneurs in the game. And now if you see anyone during this Drake beef making fun of him, calling him a correctional officer or the police or something like that, now you know why. And just because Ricky Rose is a liar doesn't mean that his songs aren't still good. And I've enjoyed listening to them on my Raycon earbuds. Now you may have seen Raycon in a bunch of other videos and assumed it was just another random YouTube. Buds are perfect, especially if you click the link. ups and downs like many others, but he's thrived for almost 20 years now since his signing to Lil Wayne's label Young Money Entertainment in 2008. Years later, he would release one of his biggest hits, Rack City, that would catapult him into a new realm of collaborations. One of those collaborations was with none other than Chris Brown, and it was while he was working with Chris Brown that the controversy began. The controversy revolves around his beef with Lil Durk and the spotlight it put on Tyga's debatable authenticity. The beef took place around 2014 and was one that had been brewing for a bit. It all started when the two would be in the studio with Chris Brown working on music, and Tyga previewed a song Durk was on. In Durk's verse on the song, he mentioned having sex with Tyga's ex-wife, Blac Chyna. This interaction started what would go on to be a series of IG posts as well as disses back and forth between the two. During the exchange, Durk went at Tyga for famously getting his chain snatched and pointed out multiple times that he did not view the interactions as beef, but if Tyga wanted... Tyga's responses included calling Durk broke, a nobody, and denying that he ever got his chain snatched.
There was some controversy, some videos online about someone snatching your chain. Can you clear that up for us?
Yeah, man, that's all false, man. It's like, I just don't understand. Like,
eventually, the beef fizzled out, but it was the start of Tyga's image being exposed. There was some more drama where people accused him of repping multiple different gangs, but I don't know too much about that personally, so I'm not going to get into it. But how did this self-proclaimed Compton native go from making music that would get him signed by Lil Wayne, having beefs with Lil Durk, and repping different gangs, to songs like Taste, the highest-selling song of his career? Well, it all starts with his so-called roots in Compton. Throughout his rise, Tyga would claim that he was born and raised in Compton and often discussed the hard times this brought. Many people believed him and even give him the credit that comes with growing up there. But this was all changed when the truth of Tyga's upbringing was exposed. In 2012, a video from MTV's Bustas, which Tyga was featured on, was leaked. In the show, Tyga competed in a set of pretty ridiculous challenges, which even resulted in him getting booed off stage at one point, in part because he didn't know how to pronounce the word amoeba during a freestyle.
Nothing wrong with that. He said amoebas, amoeba. It's an honest mistake.
I couldn't even read that last word.
But the real kicker came from Tyga's introduction on the show. Remember how Tyga has claimed that he grew up in Compton throughout his entire career? Well, during this introduction, he flips that narrative and pretty much his entire image on its head.
Tyga, I got this name when I was young. My mom used to say I looked like Tiger Woods, so I just stuck with that. Grew up, not too tough. Parents got a Range Rover, CL600, doing it big. Not too much hard, but I'm still street. Yeah, it's TYGA. They say I'm not hood cause I stay in the valley. They say I never been in the alley. I tell them cats, I've been in the alley.
First, Tyga has publicly and proudly claimed that his name stands for Thank You God Always, but then he revealed the truth of his name's origin, which was that his mom said he always looked like Tiger Woods, so he went with that. Second, he states that he grew up not too tough and that his parents drove a Range Rover as well as a Mercedes-Benz CL600, both of which are worth more than $50,000. And lastly, he exposes himself saying he grew up in the Valley rather than Compton. And with all the details that Tyga gave us, his experience was nothing like he had made it out to be. This comfortable rich kid lifestyle is almost a complete opposite in comparison to the childhood he portrayed. Tyga went on to say that the show was scripted and he was just doing and saying what he had to in order to succeed, but the damage to his reputation had already been done. The public struggled to believe that someone who grew up in this way would lie and give all of that up for a show. People began to see through the social media beefs and the gang member impersonator that Tyga was. Since that happened, Tyga was more open to admitting he wasn't about that life, although some people did end up vouching for certain
shit. You could not have a girlfriend. They could say, just say you got a girlfriend, or you got one, say you don't got a girlfriend. Like, they just make you, they tell you type shit what to say. Somewhat scripted, you could say. You know?
He was born in Burbank or something, and then maybe, you know, he moved down to Compton.
No, he grew up in Pasadena and then went to Compton when he was older because he was going to be a rapper.
No, he is from Compton. We're not going to take away his street cred.
Well, I don't know that he's from Compton or not from Compton. He said on the reality show that he wasn't.
So clearly there was a lot of debate around the subject. Ironically enough, by letting go of the image he had been trying so hard to portray and leaning into what he was actually good at, Tyga actually blew up even more. In Tyga's case, it seems like the public finding out about his come up may have been one of the better things for his career.
Ain't nobody believed it was gangster to begin with. That's why.
Plies is a rapper who was hot in the 2000s. Songs like Shorty with T-Pain. But his career seemed seemed to be riddled with lies that would later be exposed. Before he was a rapper, Plies was already fairly successful in high school. He played both ways as a wide receiver and defensive back on his football team, was crowned homecoming king, was the valedictorian of his high school class, and was named the best dressed student of his class. After a pretty notable and awarded high school career, he went to college where he would continue to play football at Miami, Ohio as a wide receiver. He eventually made the decision to transfer back to his home state and attend University of Central Florida. But soon after his transfer, he dropped out to pursue music. This newfound interest came because of his stepbrother, Rennell Lawrence Lavatt, who established a record label called Big Gates Records. Plies first appeared on a song in 2003, and ironically enough, he didn't even want to rap but ended up being featured anyway. During a promo run for the song, Plies met an executive at Slip and Slide Records, where he would end up signing a deal that later granted connections for an Atlantic Records distribution deal. In the years following his first song, Plies dropped a few mixtapes that got enough attention to justify his first studio album. His album, The Real Testament, contained his first breakout song and one many of you probably know Plies from, called Shorty featuring T-Pain. Also in this album are a bunch of tracks that discuss both gang life and love. The contrast between the two subjects, as well as the alleged gang life subject matter itself, are a big red flag when it comes to the fraudulent credibility of Plies. Funny enough, around the time of his first album release, Plies featured on the song I mentioned earlier with Rick Ross called I'm So Hood. In the song, Plies speaks on his image saying, "Pants hanging off me now cause my pistol heavy," and "They say I'm fed bound. They call me high risk. I'm a full-blooded goon. Lames make me sick." Following his first major successful project and a plethora of other popular features, Plies would continue his rise by putting out 3 more studio albums. But it was around the time of his third album that the public's magnifying glass looked his way. And when they looked, they found something pretty interesting. Shortly after the release of Plies' second album, Definition of Real, an investigation by Hip Hop DX began. They decided to look into Plies' authenticity, and they were arguing that when Plies uses words like real or goon, he was referring to being hard or a gangster. Others also said that the stories he said in his music were supposed to be reflective of his lifestyle. To be fair to Plies, Hip Hop DX operated their investigation under the assumption that everything he said in his songs he lived, and what they found was that Plies had no criminal record in his home county. They then went on to search other surrounding counties in Florida's public criminal record system. They discovered that in total, Plies had only ever been arrested twice in his home state of Florida. So you might be thinking getting arrested twice isn't something to ignore or scoff at, but it turns out these arrests occurred 2 years prior. This means that they were right around the release of his first album, so it kinda defeats the whole come-up story he had portrayed in his songs. And obviously a criminal record is nothing to be sought after, and there's definitely a real chance he was never caught. But with this information and more to come, it's hard to see Plies as a common criminal. And on top of that, his arrests were for resisting an officer without violence, and his second was because of an incident that occurred at a concert of his. I'm not going to go super deep into the concert drama, but there were some shots let off by Plies' brother, which led to his car getting searched, which led to him getting a misdemeanor for possession of a concealed weapon. It wasn't a big deal though, as he just posted bail and pleaded no contest. Back to Hip Hop DX's investigation, the only other things they found were a few traffic violations and some civil suits. As Hip Hop DX states though, none of these county databases nor the FDLE's report include any juvenile criminal record that might have existed for Plies prior to his 18th birthday. They also point out that first-person accounts of criminal activities on Plies' part are conspicuously scarce in his raw rhymes. They then go on to talk about how many of his songs seem like stories from other people's perspectives, but there are the occasional past tense references to what appear to be the claims of his own criminal activity. One glaring example can be found during his lament on the suffering his alleged criminal activities caused his mother on Runnin' My Mama Crazy, in which he recollects, "Remember the nights me sitting up in a cold cell, I'm waking you up out your sleep, it's me calling you from jail." Well passionate, his verses claim that he was ever in a cold cell now appear to be untruthful, as according to the FDLE's report, Plies was never in jail for any period of time prior to 2006. They also pointed out that Plies has also produced a contemptuous image for himself on the screen, including his portrayal as a high-rollin' drug dealer in the video clip for Worth Goin' Fedfo. Another issue for Plies' credibility happened when Jamie Foxx famously discussed a situation he had with him. It all started with an initial phone call with Plies, where as Foxx states, even Plies' voice was a big shock from what he was expecting due to the content of his music.
Yeah, that was the original.
Before we agree that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, I'm gonna need to know a little more about these birds.
Before you even heard him talking, you heard his music, you would think certain type of way, but then you hear him talk, you're like, oh man, this is an educated brother. You must have went to college. You know what I'm saying? You're very educated, so
I thought I'd have to choose between an IT degree and certifications until I found WGO. There I earned both through one.
Just like, alright.
Plies. I didn't know anything about Plies. I only heard the good records. I'm on the set with Plies to do this video, and when I heard Plies talk to me, it blew my mind, because when I got on the phone, I was trying to get where he was. Yo, what's up, nigga? What we doing with this video, cuz? And he was like, first of all, I want to make sure that we have the particulars. I'm not kidding. Right.
Further down the road, when the two were together on a set for a video, a group of guys would approach in what Fox details an intimidating manner. When they approached, Plies, The Dream, and both of their security teams ran. Jamie said he approached the group and calmed things down, but Plies' actions had already been burned into Fox's mind.
So I get out there, we can't find Plies. And I understand why. You know why? Because he was afraid for his life. Because you never know, he could have died.
He ran to the bathroom.
As it turns out, the approaching group contained the rapper 40 Glock, who recounts a similar interaction going down, stating he wasn't even there to cause any issues.
One of the lamest wannabe gangsters I ever seen, dog.
Jumped up and ran himself in the bathroom.
Gang punched this nigga out, beat this nigga up with one hand, phone in the other hand, and then this nigga sued.
You know what I mean? We was coming to hit him up and talk to him, let him know what's going on, like da-da-da-da, but nigga, we didn't come to sock this nigga or do nothing. As long as he wouldn't set up file, you talking some real niggas.
But regardless, following the incident, a beef was started that resulted in Plies releasing his diss letter to the industry, and then 40's response returned to sender. It's important to note that Plies denies any of this going down the way that Jamie Foxx does, but to be fair, who would even admit to it going down like that, especially when your credibility is on the line. Plies even spoke on the incident saying, "People lie to enhance their situation," which is pretty ironic. With all of this being evident, Plies is still generally well liked and well regarded for his intelligence. Some say his retelling of stories, many of which allegedly are rumored to come from his family members rather than himself, pose a negative effect and take advantage of those who actually go through what he talks about in his songs. Regardless, nowadays Plies has mostly been seen on social media in a series of comedic, lighthearted posts that give advice to the youth, as well as dropping the occasional song or project here and there. So if there's anything to be learned from this video, it's that
yeah, man, for Roast, yeah, he definitely he figuring out lies. Plies, he was the first Lil Tecca. You know what I'm saying? How Lil Tecca admitted, like, for a minute, shit hip hop, I'm just rapping, you know what I'm saying? Just talking shit. That's all Plies was doing. But Roast really thought he was a gangster, you know what I'm saying? Still to this day, he think he a certain type of nigga, but you know, he just called himself a boss now. But yeah, man, like, comment, subscribe, man. We gonna go to the next.